welcome to the NYC Love Kitchen Podcast. My name is Walter Sotelo. I am the Executive Director of the non-for-profit that serves the upper part of Manhattan and Harlem since 1987 here in New York City. Thank you for joining us this day, and I just want to be able to begin to give you a history of how a food pantry or a food bank became something that was necessary in America. Many of us understand that food is an essential right. And sometimes when situations, circumstances that are difficult happen in the countries, there is aid that is activated. Well, in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, about a quarter of the population of the United States was left unemployed. And this caused a serious problem. Now, as you know, I wasn't born in 1930. I have no recollection of how the situation was. So we look back at the history and we see that the politicians and those policymakers, our government at that time, instituted a way of supplying food for the families that were going during this difficult time. They were hungry. They didn't have money to be able to buy food. We obviously know that many of the communities of faith, churches, mosques, or even synagogues were responding to the need of humans as well as the neighbors. But that wasn't enough as an organizational, institutional response. So the United States government began to create a food bank. And the food bank, basically what it does is, imagine an immense Costco, but is run by a non-for-profit. And farmers and other food services donate their food to these organizations that are they're non-profit organizations, and they then distribute those foods to local pantries. And this was happening in the 1967 is when we first find the first food bank. And it just started kind of rolling. And as people started realizing that the need for food became greater and started growing more and more food banks were established. And today we have what we call the Feed America Food Bank, which has about 200 members for other food banks. As a matter of fact, there is even a food bank in Puerto Rico. There are food banks in different states, and those states receive food from the major Feed America and from other organizations, and they send the food there, and then they distribute that food to local food pantries. And those are based in communities like us, the New York City Love Kitchen. And what happens is that we as an organization are embedded in a community, and we get to understand the needs of our neighbors, and then that food comes to us and we are able to distribute it in a local area. Now, here in New York City, we have the Food Bank for New York, which is the largest food bank here in New York City. Now, there's all the Food Harvest, which is another nonprofit. We receive food from donations from organizations that maybe are getting rid of food that is in good condition. It is not expired in the sense that you cannot consume it or anything like that. We wouldn't be able to give that food if you were not be able to eat it. So we do know that we respect the health, the nutrition of the families, and that food gets distributed. Now, the situation is such that food insecurity is a problem that is widely spread, and it's a very difficult problem to be able to determine the causes. There are some common causes. For example, unemployment. There is also the high cost of living, high cost of being able to feed good, nutritious food. So the individual, the family, the guardian, the parents, whoever it is that does the grocery shopping, finds themselves having to negotiate where to spend the money that they have. Sometimes the individuals have to choose to pay, for example, the rent instead of buying nutritious foods. Food insecurity is not so much about the food. It is about access and about the power to be able to obtain nutritious, healthy food. Food insecurity describes the tension a family experiences when they do not know if they are going to be able to have a meal the next time. And that creates a tension in the individual, especially those that are the ones of the household, grandparents, parents, guardians. The children are the ones that receive most of the time the consequences of this. Now, you may be thinking here in America, how is this possible? Well, in America, over 42 million people experience food insecurity. In America, one of the ways in which we counter attack or try to solve food insecurity is by three different legs, if we could say, that are the main players in this particular sector in our society. We have food banks, which are the big organizations that are non-for-profit. Sometimes they're in a state or in a city, like in our city, New York City. Then we have what we call the local pantries. Those are smaller pantries that receive the food from the food banks, and they distribute that food in a localized community. And then we also have soup kitchens. And the soup kitchens actually take the food that is donated by food banks or other organizations like restaurants or food service organizations, and they cook meals to provide for families, individuals in their community. So we have those three different organizations. A food bank on the top, large organization. They receive, imagine a warehouse like Costco, BJ's. Those are the types of organizations that now take the food and donate it to the local pantry. Here in New York City, we call them food pantries, and they're scattered throughout New York City in all 5 boroughs. And then we have soup kitchens, which specialize in making meals for families and those that are working poor or vulnerable, or even people that are living without homes on the streets of New York City. Those are the three main organizations that counterattack food insecurity. NYC Love Kitchen falls into the category of being a local food pantry and a soup kitchen. So we tackle food insecurity by addressing, one, those that cannot have or access to healthy, nutritious food by providing supplemental groceries weekly in different locations at our hub or on our mobile pantries, where we actually go to the communities like in Harlem, Washington Heights, Inwood, the Bronx. And then we also have our soup kitchen, which is localized, and it's a kitchen that actually we have a chef and we have a nutritionist, and they cook meals and prepare meals, and they are served out of a window in our location. Sometimes pre-pandemic, our soup kitchen was able to have restaurant style serving where the people could come in and sit down. But now that's where we are operating. We're hoping to be able to have a better space to be able to do this work in a manner that meets the need of our community. Some of the causes to food insecurity here in New York City are the high cost of living. There are so many different neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has a different socio-economical standard, if I could say, or cost even. Here in Washington Heights and Inwood, we have many migrants, we have asylum seekers, we have New Yorkers that have been here, people that have come from other places, and it's Manhattan. The island that people say, you know, is so nice they named it twice, New York, New York. Here, when you work in a job that is maybe paying you $26,000, you could barely afford living in New York City in an apartment. So this is where we have homes that have rented, or apartments that are rented a room, and a person will be maybe paying $800 a month, $900 a month to be able to live in an apartment. Now, they may not even have access to a kitchen, so they have to go out to a restaurant to be able to eat. So what we see is that there is a concern, there is a worry that food insecurity begins to cause in the life of an individual. Now, let's think about that individual having a wife, partner, or now children. How is that person going to be able to provide for 2, 3, 4 people? Now, let's even add another person, the elderly, those that are their relatives, like a grandmother, grandfather. So you may have in a household one person that is working or two people that are working, living in a one-bedroom apartment, or maybe even renting a room. And now all of a sudden they don't have access to a kitchen, no refrigeration, no microwave. Now everybody has this tension. So what takes place is that as they're trying to live, they have this constant worry of where the next meal is going to come from. And one of the beautiful things that we see is that many of our volunteers that come and work at the NYC Love Kitchen are coming from educational institutions like Columbia University, NYU, CUNY, and these are college students. They're also experiencing, many of the college students are experiencing food insecurity because of the high cost of education. We, as our volunteers come in, they're witnessing and they're involving themselves in helping serve one another. And they see that even at that moment when they get fresh fruit, when they receive, let's say, some type of vegetable that they can actually cook or saute or make a salad, it solves the issue for them at that moment. Now, obviously, as we try to solve the problem of food insecurity, we, the NYC Love Kitchen, we cannot do it alone. One of the things that we hear is that corporations or businesses want to be able to get involved. There is opportunities for you guys to be able to come and volunteer with us. But in reality, we actually do need money. We need money to be able to grow, to do better, and to teach people how to be able to cook healthy meals. Because it's not just about obtaining and getting the free food or the food that is at no cost to the person, but it's also educating them in eating healthy. The educational component of food insecurity to solve it is extremely important because we can give you food for 20, 30 years. Our organization has been in existence for 37 years, and they continue to be in this cycle of dependency just because the fact that they are still unable to succeed or advance in this particular city. Someone told me today, one of our clients, it was just so interesting. As I said to her, I said, how are you doing? How are things going? She says, I'm getting the New York City beat down. I don't know if you're hearing from somewhere else. That's not an actual fight. That's not someone, hitting the person, but it is the tension and the pressure that we as New York City residents feel every day, whether it's traveling on the subway, whether it is walking on the streets, whether it's being in an apartment, whether it's being in a room. There is always something pressuring the life and the joy of life in each individual. We at the New York City Love Kitchen say this: hunger is big, but our love is bigger. We not only serve food and give food as a soup kitchen or a local pantry and mobile pantry, but we actually want to be able to love people, and we want to do it in a deep way. If you're a person that would like to volunteer with us, please reach out to us in our social media channels or in our website at nyclovekitchen.com. The right to food is the right to feed oneself with dignity. Here in New York City, we struggle and fight those forces that are trying to make life less joyful. We at the New York City Love Kitchen value the service of food with love. I want to encourage you to join us in our capital campaign to expand, to grow bigger. We're in need of a warehouse. We need to be able to have a commercial kitchen. Our kitchen right now, where we cook, is 37 years old. The same stove, the same ovens. We need a bigger space, not because we want to be bigger, but because our community is in need of it. Cada persona tiene el derecho de poder tener comida y cocinar, comprar comida con dignidad. Si estás viviendo en Nueva York y tienes dificultades, estamos aquí para poder ayudarte en los vecindarios de Washington Heights, Inwood y Harlem. Contáctanos en nuestra página de web en el NYC Love, L-O-V-E, Kitchen, KITCHEN.com. Ahí podrías encontrar ayuda. Posiblemente te podemos ayudar. Si eres una persona que tienes un corazón de servicio, de misericordia, hospitalidad, trabajas en una organización, tienes tu compañía de comida o eres un profesional, necesitamos tu ayuda. Necesitamos dinero para poder expandir nuestras operaciones. No es porque queremos una cocina más grande o una acción de ayuda más grande, es porque nuestra comunidad está en gran necesidad. La inseguridad de comida es presente. Más de 42 millones de americanos están viviendo con este problema. Una tensión continua. Si estás viviendo en eso o si no estás viviendo en eso, ayúdanos, por favor. Por favor, síguenos en nuestras redes sociales y espero que nos contactes y que estés otra vez aquí en nuestro podcast la próxima vez. Gracias.